And you're one of the people that didn't call it taekwondo today. You know, that's the main one that I get. Oh, taekwondo class, and I'm like, well, it's not actually taekwondo.
Yeah, when I say I go to taekwondo, then people like, is it taekwondo? And I'm like, no, it isn't. It's something else.
It is something else, actually. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when my kids started school, I always worried about my daughter. But actually, my son is the one. He spent the first 3 months of school. Every day he would cry in school, cry a little bit. But he's a very weird kid, because he will quite self-aware. He would tell me, "Mommy, can you please tell the teacher not to tell me to stop crying? I will stop by myself." When she tells me to stop crying, I feel more stress. It's not very strange how a little kid, he kind of knew what he wanted, but he...
Well, the Taekwondo black belt. The Taekwondo black belt is one of the big achievements that anyone can achieve. And the first, let me make sure I get this right. There was it the first one that I certified to black belt? We had a student who the family is really big for me. They're huge supporters. They're allies. We're working together on the Taekwondo in PJ. And Miss Ting is super passionate about SJKCs.
Okay.
And she's basically the reason why I ended up in Malaysia. People they always say to me, why did you choose Malaysia? And I always say, Malaysia chose me. And people think it's like, it's some joke. No, I'm serious. I was just here doing my thing, training for going to Korea for a contest and for a grading. And then it was Miss Ting who said, I want to take what you're doing and put it in SJKC. And she was the one who gave me that first opportunity, really. And that was the initial demand. That then led me to take it seriously, and then the success came after that. But Miss Ting's daughter has cerebral palsy.
Oh, okay.
And is considered OKU. And special needs. And she's a black belt.
Wow.
Yeah. It took her a while. It took her longer than
But she got
average,
there, right?
But she got there. And for that grading, I brought in an examiner from South Korea. So she was assessed by a Korean master.
Oh. So it's even tougher than the average.
I mean, it's prestigious, at least. It's serious. It's not like I'm handing out black belts. And he was so impressed. He was so impressed because Taekwondo is about determination.
Yes.
It's about perseverance. It's about gentleness as well on the other side of that. And you can see those traits in how somebody trains, regardless of their physical capacity for athleticism. Right? And she's tough. She trained well. She was strong, good stamina, try really hard, that warrior spirit. And so, her brother, Mingxun, is incredible. He's an absolute gem.
He's your instructor.
Yeah.
Mingxun
is great.
Yeah.
Such a good lad. Super supportive family, lovely family. But again, it's like you've got there the brother, who's turned out fantastically, a fantastic young man. And then you've got that black belt that Su Sheng has earned is absolutely deserved. It wasn't issued by me. It was issued by a Korean master who is extremely, extremely veteran. That guy is very well respected. So there's no doubt that it was earned properly. But if you were to take any of the tangibles, you would see them as different. If you were to measure the skill as a performance, you'd see that, the details are different. And that's one of the things about Taekwondo that I think is a bit different than some of the other ones. Everyone's black belt is a different black belt. It would be negative to say that there is no universal standard. But it's about what are you measuring. And if you're measuring the principles of Taekwondo and how they are exemplified, and if you're looking at character traits, that's where I think you'll find more of a standard. But in terms of physical performance, there's a student in America who did a black belt grading and they're blind.
Wow.
Yeah. There's other ones in wheelchair.
Yep.
Or these types of things. And you'd think, well, surely it's not possible, right? But for me, it's a positive, because if you're dealing well with the fringe cases,
Yes.
with the outliers, then you're dealing well with those kind of all along the spectrum. And then the challenge, though, that I see for a lot of Choi Kwan Do people is delivering top end. It's for the students who are advanced, who are natural, who are gifted,
Yep.
the ones who do dance twice a week. If they learn dance, they learn so fast. Like, it's silly. They learn so fast. Or they do gymnastics, or they're doing, like, super athletic, have a high physical capacity, or whatever. So I think that, in Choi Kwan Do, that's probably its like weaker side, is they're not so good at that. And I'm very fortunate that I had already been training for 27 years or something, but 27 years at this point. It'd been 20 years by the time I opened a place.
Right.
Most people only been training for
a few years,
4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's the minimum requirement.
Yep.
So it's harder for them to do both.
Yep.
Having the small groups, and then also now being established, having the option for one-to-one lessons, doing also the way we do gradings. Like, that's more of like a choices thing. There's the Choi Kwan Do broadly, where we're not the only school to have special needs students assimilated and fully into the class, not integrated separately, but in the class. But especially with choices having the gradings based on a mixture of merit and attendance. Attendance is a type of merit, but when they've achieved a certain skill and they're not presenting the belt at the grading, being able to accelerate promotion for those who need it. Like, some kids, they need to go up a year in school. Some kids need to stay back. It's the same in a martial arts school. Some kids need to get moved up. Some kids need to spend more time on the current subject. So, yeah, I think these are things that are very important. And I wanted to also not just do the plug for the choices, but I think for Choi Kwan Do people in general, hearing about it a bit more in the context of the Choi Kwan Do setting. Because, plenty of schools I've been to in this, they're inclusive environments. I haven't found a Choi Kwan Do school that is exclusive by nature, because it's just not the philosophy of the art.
Taekwondo,
Can I ask a little bit about your experience as a parent with Choi Kwan Do? And you've got your kids in it, and and you're one of the people that didn't call it Taekwondo today. That's the main one that I get. Taekwondo class, and I'm like, well, it's not actually Taekwondo.
Yeah, when I say I go to Choi Kwan Do, then people are like, is it Taekwondo? And I'm like, no, it isn't. It's something else.
It is something else, actually. Yeah.
Actually, we first started. Akash went to kindy with Zara.
Yes.
Yeah. So they Zara actually. Then the mom said, they go to this martial arts thing in the condo, that time was in Seni. You had a class in Seni. And then I said, okay, maybe I'll stick Akash in there, because sometimes they spend time during the holidays. And so I sent him there. And that time, because my Akash, he's a twin. So they are like in a way, like they're kind of like premature babies. They didn't do full term, and he was a little bit smaller when he was in kindergarten. He was one of the smaller kids. So I thought it might be good. I didn't know anything about martial arts. I did some sports in school. I played in netball teams, and I was doing school athletics and everything, but I didn't know much about these other things about martial arts. So I thought, never mind, we just try. And my idea was always this. We see those drills, right? People follow the instructor, do the pattern and all those things. So I didn't know what to expect. So I stuck him in. That time he was only maybe 5. 5, 4.5 or 5, something like that. And then he was very introverted kid. He was very shy, and sometimes we had to be there, or sometimes my helper had to go in there and then be there with him because he feel a bit overwhelmed by the whole thing and other kids. So for a year or two, we were in, I think year plus, we were in Sydney. And then later on, I don't know, maybe the Sydney class changed or something. And then we joined the Dojang in Hatamas. And then we've been there ever since. And as I told you, in kindergarten, he had several experiences where sometimes certain he was smaller, so he always get a little bit pushed around by bigger kids because he's born in June. So usually in a school, usually you find that the kids born in the earlier part of the year, they're bigger, you know. So and I don't think it's mean behavior, they're just rough. So he will get the brunt of it. And then when he started school also, it was like that. When he started school in primary 1, he had these 2 bigger kids in his class also. They would always sort of like push him. They were friends, but they would push him, and then he would like doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to handle it. Then he come back a little bit upset, you know. And the funny thing is when my kids started school, I always worried about my daughter. But actually my son is the one, he spent the first 3 months of school, every day he would cry in school. Cry a little bit, but he's a very weird kid, you know, because he will quite self-aware. He would tell me, "Mommy, can you please tell the teacher not to tell me to stop crying? I will stop by myself. When she tells me to stop crying, I feel more stress." It's a very strange little kid. He kind of knew what he wanted, but he just wanted to self-regulate, but he would So at that time, I remember, I think maybe when he was 6 or 7, I talked to you once. Remember, I said he keeps getting shoved around by these kids. What should he do? You know. Then actually, he didn't want me to even tell you. He didn't want me to tell anybody. He was very embarrassed about it. Then after that, after you talked to him and you gave him some strategies, then he kind of like slowly he managed to sort of hold it off, these things. Like you said, use your voice, right? So he would tell them, don't push me around like that. And then but it took many years actually until about primary 3, when he was about 8 or 9, he was continued to be like this. But after primary 3, I noticed a change in him, and he had been going to regular classes all the time. And then he was very he developed a lot more confidence. He was doing pretty well in school. And then we stuck him into more physical activities, also even soccer and everything. Then he became a little bit more extroverted. And I really feel like last 2 years, he came into his own.
Yeah.
He kind of have a confidence, but it's not a showy confidence. It's a kind of very quiet. He's still relatively quiet kid. Doesn't like to talk unnecessarily, but he has that thing that other kids wouldn't really go and do stuff to him.
Yeah, correct.
You get that personality.
He has a bit of his aura now.
Yeah, so he's more aura. And then after that, I actually tried to stick Isha in for classes. But then when she was small, she have a lot of low muscle tone issues. Her coordination is not there. So I think I tried her for a camp. I think it was a little bit not, I wouldn't say disastrous, but she just couldn't follow the camp. And then I think that time you had a South African instructor. He was very kind to her and very good with her, but at the same time she was still prone to a little bit of like, if you didn't manage her properly, she would have a meltdown or a tantrum, you know. So then we agreed that she wasn't ready for the classes. Then slowly, I think, I don't know when she started actually, maybe when she was 7 or 8 maybe. And then she went into class later than Akash. By that time, we had started her with some Indian dance classes. So she picked, like you said, dance, right? Yeah, the dance very helpful, very
absolutely,
helpful.
Absolutely.
The dance classes, the teacher also very inclusive. The teacher doesn't care whether she's special needs or not. She got to do all the drills, you know. The teacher just say, yeah, you got to practice, you got to do that, you got to stand properly. So she was like a bit scared of the teacher, you know, the head teacher. And she just had to learn how to do be more coordinated and learn things. And then after that, I noticed the Choi Kwang Do also improved because of the dance.
Of course.
Yeah. So now it's like it's complementary. The dance complement the taekwondo also complement the dance, because you have to remember steps and moves and patterns. So it becomes more second nature.
Yeah, the dance. I'm not an expert in dance. I'm a big proponent for it. Especially shout out my pal Sabrina with the Resonate dance. That's a great one in Hartamas.
Yes.
Yeah. So the dance is really good for that. Your relationship with your body.
Yep.
And your ability to express yourself.
Yes.
And it is technical. Definitely, there's techniques to it. A lot of it is a vibe. I've got no technical instruction in dance, but I love dancing because I'm just connected with my body.
Yep.
And it's a way to, energy moves in your body. Choi Kwando, especially when they get into it, is very technical in certain moments, not all the time, but it will become very clear what are the points of performance for a movement to be correct or incorrect, right?
Yes.
And like Isha can do a spinning sidekick.
Yeah, because of her dance.
Which is
and
pretty
she does,
cool.
Yeah.
It's also because of the way, like the way that she was taught.
Yeah.
Is also really big, because that way that she learned that move was based on proprioception. It was done gradually to adjust the brain to the sensation of turning and spinning, and that way of teaching that kick, almost anyone can learn because it's like an optimized way. And I think that in terms of like teaching, if you can, I have learned so much from teaching in an inclusive environment. And even before, we used to have it was called extra support class. And it was a group of neurodivergent or physically challenged people that were together in a group. They also would come in their little bits and pieces for the mixed lessons, the normal classes, but they also had a class together.
Okay.
And teaching that group, I learned a lot. As an instructor, I learned a lot, because you have to find the best way to break it down.
Yes.
You can't rely on just charisma or just talent or just energy.
Yep.
You need to the pedagogy needs to be really good.
Yep.
And find those hacks.
Yep.
And it's not, and also that way that I taught the spinning sidekick was I learned from somebody else.
Okay. Yeah,
Of course.
I
Right.
think teachers also, a lot of teachers over the years that she has worked with, also we have worked with for teaching her, not just in school but otherwise, they have also realized that actually when you learn certain techniques of adapting for a child like her, you can also, other children need this also.
Yes. Yes.
Actually, other children need that kind of methods as well. It's just that we've forgotten about the principles of learning. We are so focused on teaching to the test that we teach children how to ace exams, but they're not really learning,
Yeah. Like, for example, this spinning sidekick, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to teach this to white belts, yellow belts, whatever. It's a silly thing to do. It's a lot of fun. It's very fun for me because it's always like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. It's working. It's working. It's very exciting. But it's, it's not teaching to the test. It's not part of the curriculum at all. It's completely bonus territory. It's once in a while drop of sambal in amongst a fairly plain dish, right? Just as a metaphor.
Yep.
But yeah, as a teacher, as an instructor, there's a lot, we can gain a lot by a challenge. And if an instructor is in a situation where teaching a student is challenging for whatever reason, it doesn't necessarily have to be physical, doesn't have to be in relation to their cognitive capacity.
Yeah.
Also, it can be due to personality.
Yep.
And it can be due to teenagers being teenagers, kids being kids, naughty kids being naughty, which is a bit of my specialty because I was one. So I know the way to turn them around. Yeah. These are the ones that we can learn a lot from as instructors.
Yep.
And if you were to ever, if you teach for the sake of teaching and you teach for inspiring other people and having like your legacy kind of live on through them, the ones who you'll have the biggest impact on or who've had the biggest turnaround
Yeah.
are the ones who had a big challenge.
Yeah, because it's life changing for these kids.
Yes. Yeah, and I would rather that part of my whole vision has been to have other instructors teach. So it's only recently I started teaching again, because my vision was, if I can be life-changing for a handful of instructors who are in turn life-changing for students. That was my view, was take a crowd who will then, the amount of positive influence is so much greater.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's been an absolute blessing to be teaching regularly again and hanging out with the kids, because it's a huge part of me that I was not really connected with in the same way. It's very grounding. And so, but yeah, it's just very, very positive as an instructor. It can be difficult, especially in the beginning. Be gentle with yourself as an instructor. Be gentle with yourself as a coach when teaching in an inclusive environment.
Yep.
Give it time, and there's a lot of benefit
Yep.
from the instructor as well.
Yep.
In terms of learning.
Yeah, it's very it's life changing for even, I think, the people involved who are not the special needs child. And I feel like it kind of changes your perspective on a lot of things, how you approach situations. That's why we always say, she's like, oh, so lucky, but then actually we're lucky to have a child like her, because she changes our perceptions of things, and she's like a filter in my life, because of her we kind of attract people who have this positive growth mindset.
Yeah.
So if we didn't have a child like her, we wouldn't meet these people, because we need these people to support her also. So we tend to meet people that are more like that.
Yeah.
And then the people that are not so nice is just like that thing you always say, the person who's not nice to the waiter is not a nice person. We always can tell, oh, not a nice person, because of the way they approach her, or the way they talk to her, even kids or parents or whoever. So yeah, I think, but I mean, I'm very happy with and I like that your school teaches children these positive things, and also gives them a lot of indirectly a lot of self-esteem. The kind of thing I don't have to be worried about being in these situations where I'm under threat, whether verbally or, because I can always stand up for myself. I can, and if need to, physically, if I'm being hurt, I can do something about it. I know what to do, because it's already, every week we learn these things, right? And the camps are all even dangerous situations out there. If you get caught by somebody, what can you do to escape?
Yes.
And all those things, which I feel no other school does it. And not only children with special needs, I think sometimes a lot of children these days, they're a bit physically awkward, because a lot of children, they don't really spend a lot of time outside or doing sports or doing physical things. They're mostly in the house with their gadget. That's the worst, the worst thing about children today.
Yeah.
And some parents, I mean, I've also been guilty of it. Sometimes you have nothing else to do and you want some alone time and you need to do stuff. That's the easiest way. You just chuck it to them and then they will just be like so super glued to it and they will leave you alone, right? But I mean, it's not a very good...
Especially living in the city.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because it's not like you can just put them outside. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
So
dangerous nowadays also.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like growing up in the countryside.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that it's I feel very fortunate with the Choi Kwando that it's got the, like you said, practical self-defense, the physical education and the physical well-being with the character development. That's like it. That's the main. Working on that stuff is enough to work on.
Yeah.
You don't want to be biting off more than you can chew. That's already
don't need
quite
to do too much. Just stick to a core amount of things that are working well. Even the premise, I like it. Every time they say the premise, it's like repeating, but it then becomes like ingrained in your head,
Yeah, it's a mantra. It's like but it's also positive. And if you what do we call it? It's manifesting as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're setting an intention.
Yeah. It's a purpose,
Yeah,
like
it's a
you're
purpose.
stating a
Yeah.
purpose. And nowadays, a
Yeah.
lot of even big universities in the US, UK, they also have, you need to write a purpose essay about what you want to do. What is your purpose in life, right? So I think that is kind of important. It can be a bit big for very small children, but I think if you say it enough,
Yeah.
you believe in it.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the esteem as well. Like, I think being mission driven is also gives you more confidence because you have direction. And when you have direction, you're better at believing that you've made a positive decision. Because even if the outcome is not successful, you made a decision that was based on going in a certain direction.
Yes.
And then there's the physical confidence that we all get from knowing we can, feeling more confident about sticking up for ourselves and being assertive. And then also not having our identity tied in only to our achievements. Not to say that we don't strive to achieve, but to the confidence, and we spoke about this on the first episode in quite a lot of detail, confidence coming from different aspects of your identity and your personality.
Because the achievement is just a marker of your development. It's not the end goal of your development, it's not the end goal. And I guess for me, one last thing I wanted to add is that I don't like this charity model of disability. As I know, I always say it because that's what a lot of families I know. I want them to just dispel it because it's like, doesn't mean your child with disability, doesn't mean that they're not strong. And I don't like all this because in Malaysia we have all this kesian, kesian everybody, kesian me, I'm disabled, so be nice to me. For me, I focus on making sure my child with a disability is very strong. If she is stronger, doesn't have, she, to her best ability, she can be easier to support. She can also support other people. I do not discount that even at the like last year, one of her besties was being verbally, some child was being mean to her, the best friend in school. She stood up for that kid. So it rather surprised me when I heard it from the child of the best friend. The mother said, "Oh, she stood up for her." I said, "Really? I mean, that's kind of amazing, because she actually needs people to stand up for her." So I feel like if we focus on building strength in children, they can do it for themselves. We don't have to always be there protecting them all the time.
Yeah.